Hi, this is Kevin at the Virtual Planetarium at Raritan Valley Community College. Welcome to our weekly Star Talk. Today we're going to be talking about bright things that you can see in the sky. And by bright, I mean really, really bright. Like so bright that you can see them even before it gets completely dark. But before we talk about that, let's talk about our upcoming moon phases. We have a last quarter moon on August 30th. We have a new moon on September 6th, and then a first quarter moon on September 13th. Okay, like I said, we're going to be talking about really bright things in the sky. And you might be wondering, why? Isn't everything in the sky like really bright? Well, yes, but these are things, like I said, that we can actually see before it gets completely dark. And there's actually a big mix of things that we can see before it gets completely dark. Some of them are planets and some of them are stars. And since they might look the same in the sky, I'm going to show you how to identify each of them. So that way, next time you go outside and you look up into the sky and see all these bright things, you can kind of know which is which. Now, we're going to start by looking towards the western part of the sky. We have our sky set up for about 8 o'clock at night, which is after sunset. Sunset's now about 7:30, which is gross, but oh well. But again, it's before it gets completely dark, as we can see here in our planetarium sky. And like I said, we're looking towards the west, and if you look towards the west, you're going to see a very bright dot in the sky, and you might actually confuse it with an airplane that's coming head-on in towards you. But if you look at it for a while, you notice that it's not moving, and it's not blinking, so it's not an airplane, and that's because this is the planet Venus. Venus is the brightest thing in our sky that isn't the sun or our moon, and it's actually going to get higher and higher as the weeks go on. So you should definitely keep looking towards the west for these next few weeks and even months. And you should definitely be able to see this very bright dot, which is our sister planet, Venus. Now, if you look just above Venus, as it gets a little darker, you can actually probably see it at around 8 o'clock, but if you wait till like 8:15, you can probably see it a little easier. And this is a very bright star called Arcturus. Now, Arcturus is so bright in the sky that some people actually confuse it with a planet as well. But there's a little trick to know if what you're seeing in the sky is a star or a planet. If it twinkles, just like the song says, "Twinkle, twinkle, little star," it's a star. But if you look at it and it doesn't seem to twinkle at all, then it's a planet. So when you look at Venus in the sky, it's not going to look like it twinkles. But when you look at the dot above it, Arcturus, it is going to twinkle. And that's how you know it's a star. But how do you know if it's Arcturus? Well, for one thing, it's really bright. But you can also use another group of stars to help you identify this one star right here. And we're going to be using the group of stars that we know as the Big Dipper. So we have the Big Dipper right over here. If you don't remember, we call it the Big Dipper because it kind of looks like a pot. We have the handle right here, and then we have where you put the water into it. And if you follow the handle of the Big Dipper, we say that we arc to Arcturus right over here. And so if you see the bright dot but you're not quite sure if it's Arcturus or not, you can try to find the Big Dipper and see if the handle guides you towards the star, and that'll help you identify it a lot easier. Now, if you look directly overhead, you also see another very bright dot. Now, here, let's do this without getting too dizzy. Aha! So now we're looking directly over our head, and we're going to be able to see another very bright dot. And this one right here is another star that's called Vega. We've talked about Vega before. It's in the constellation of Lyra. It's part of the Summer Triangle, which is a group of 3 very bright stars. But Vega's the brightest of those 3 stars in the triangle, so it's the easiest one to see, and it's the one you're going to see first. Vega's really bright. It's so bright that it's actually the 5th brightest star in the sky, and fun fact, Arcturus over here is actually the 4th brightest star. So we have 2 very bright stars in the sky, very easy to see. Vega, again, you can recognize because it is directly overhead, and it's the brightest one that you're going to see in this vicinity directly over your head. You can be sure that it's not a planet because here in New Jersey, the planets don't get that high up in the sky. So if it's that high up in the sky directly over your head that it kind of hurts your neck looking at it, then you know it's the star Vega. And then lastly, we're going to look towards the southeast. And if you look towards the southeast at around 8 o'clock, hopefully there aren't too many trees in the way, we come to 2 planets that we've actually talked about recently, like 2 videos ago. The first very bright one right here is the planet Jupiter. Jupiter was in opposition recently. We talked about that in video 2 weeks ago. I'm going to put the link for that in the description. Which means, opposition means that it was opposite of the sun, which means that it was rising just as the sun was setting. Now that was about a week and a half ago, so it's already up in the sky as the sun is setting, but it might still be behind some trees or buildings if you don't have a clear view of the southeastern horizon. So you might need to wait a little bit after 8 o'clock to be able to see this, not because it's not bright enough, but because there might be stuff in the way. But Jupiter is really, really bright also, not quite as bright as Venus, but it's really bright, so it's really easy to spot. And then Saturn is actually very close to Jupiter. Saturn is about 20 degrees from Jupiter in the sky towards the upper right a little bit. And you might be wondering, well, what does a degree mean and how do I measure that? Well, it's actually pretty easy. If you hold out your fist at arm's length, the distance from the bottom of your fist to the top of it is about 10 degrees. So if you hold up one fist to Jupiter and then the other one, that distance right there is about 20 degrees, and that's about how far Saturn is going to be. So that's a pretty cool way to find it. Saturn is actually dimmer than Vega and Arcturus, so you might need to go out a little later than 8 o'clock to see it better, at least. But you should still be able to make it out at around 8 o'clock because it's still bright enough to be able to see, so that's pretty cool. Thank you for joining us today. Hope you learned something new. At least I hope you learned how to identify some of the really bright dots in the sky. You should definitely try to go outside and find Venus in the western part of the sky and then Jupiter in the eastern part of the sky. Again, they're really, really bright, so they're really easy to find. If you like this video, be sure to give us a like, and if you haven't yet, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much, and have a great week.